As it turns out, AgentOps integrates amazingly well with CrewAI's framework, and in this video, we're going to take a look at 2 CrewAI projects and show how to set them up for monitoring with AgentOps. The first project will be a very simple application that uses a few CrewAI modules, and the second project will be a standard CrewAI application that was generated using the CrewAI CLI. You are in for a treat. So at the time of recording, in order to build and run a CrewAI application, we have to make sure Python is installed on our machine, specifically a version between 3.10 and 3.13, as outlined in the CrewAI documentation. We're going to start this journey by installing a tool called PyEnv, which will allow us to easily switch between Python versions in case we don't have the right version of Python installed. Because I'm on a Mac, I'm going to install PyEnv using Homebrew. FYI, PyEnv is supported on Windows and Linux as well. But as a heads up, I'm going to be showing you how all this stuff works regarding AgentOps and CrewAI on my Mac environment. So you will be able to pick things up if you're a Windows and Linux user, but you know the deal. Here is how we use PyEnv. So this command will show us whichever version of PyEnv was installed. This command will show us all of the different Python versions that have been downloaded onto our machine. And you can see that by default on our machine, we have Python 3.13. This command allows us to install or download another version of Python if it's not listed. For example, if we wanted Python 3.10, we could download it like so. And if you wanted to switch the Python version across your entire system, you would type this global option, but we're going to go with this one. The local option will switch the Python version in the current folder and all subfolders of the current folder. So if you run it and then see what Python version is now configured in our shell, you can see that it's switched to 3.12. Now what we finna do is create a folder called example1 inside of the folder where we switched Python versions. And after we have that folder created, let's cd into it and open it with our code editor of choice. I'll be using VS Code. Now that we have our project folder open in VS Code, let's pop open a terminal and configure a virtual environment. If you're new to this virtual environment stuff, all we're doing here is configuring Python to install any third-party Python packages into this folder where we're doing our work. If we were to install some third-party Python package somewhere else, theoretically, it could cause some side effect. So that's all we're doing here. We're just configuring Python to install any third-party Python packages into this folder, like for example, UV. And now that we have UV installed, clear this and run the UV init command to scaffold out a Python project. And UV gives us a little hello script to test everything's working, and that looks good. And I personally like to remove this script because we won't be needing it. And now that we have our virtual environment set up, let's install the following Python packages. As these will be all the packages we need for example 1, you can now create a file called main.py and copy in the following code. And we should not be seeing any import errors. And that looks good. If we look closely at this code, you can see we are building a little markdown validator assistant, aka we're building an agent with one tool, with that one tool being a tool that reads in a markdown file and reports to us if it has any syntax errors. And then after this tool reports the syntax errors back to the agent will then read them out to us or print them out to us in a more friendly manner. And if you look even closer, you can see that we're not using OpenAI, we're not using Claude, but we're using Gemma 2. Gemma 2 is a free open source model that was released by Google. And because we're running a local model ourselves, we're going to run it with Ollama. So Ollama is a very easy to use tool that can be downloaded at ollama.com. All you have to do is come over here and download the appropriate version for your machine, and you should be good to go. And the way that we use Ollama is by launching it just like we would launch any other application. And when Ollama is running, you should see this llama icon in your top menu bar. And the way that we pull or download specific models offered by Ollama is by entering this command, Ollama pull, and then the model ID. And as that downloads, let's come back over to the Ollama site and browse some of the models. And you can see here that Ollama offers hundreds of different models. And theoretically, you could run any of them, assuming you have enough RAM or VRAM. So on my machine, I have about 16 gigs of RAM. So I'm able to run up to about 10 to 12 billion parameter models. That's what you're seeing with these numbers here. This tells you how many parameters are in each AI model. A rough way of thinking about parameters is it's kind of like how many brain cells the AI has. So anyways, if you want to run some of these larger models, you're probably going to have to invest in some hardware, like buying some NVIDIA chips, etc. But anyways, we're running a very small model. And after it's downloaded, we can run our CrewAI application and it should work. Now that Gemma 2 has been downloaded, let's run our CrewAI application and see how well Gemma 2 does at processing this markdown file that we have outlined here. So you can see that nothing is in this markdown file at the moment. So what we're going to do is copy in this content, which is a summary of all the steps we've taken up till this point. And I've inserted a few markdown syntax errors to see if our application picks it up. So let's run our application. Okay, so let's see if Gemma 2 is hallucinating or not. So it's saying fix line 9, column 5. It says you're using a bare URL, and that's right. And the next syntax error being reported is line 25. And it's saying add blank lines around the heading. So you can see that each heading is surrounded by spaces, right? But this one is not. So if we insert space here, that should be fixed. And the last reported error is line 44. And because we shifted the code down after line 26 where we added the space, this is now on line 45 and it's saying to end the markdown file with a new line character. So let's rerun our markdown validator assistant and hopefully all of the syntax errors should be fixed. Now let's add in AgentOps for monitoring. To use AgentOps, come over to app.agentops.ai and sign up if you haven't already. And come over to the API keys section and copy one of the API keys associated with one of the projects in your account. And let's come back to our project folder and add a .env file. And in this .env file, let's add an entry that reads in all caps, AgentOps underscore API underscore key equals, and then paste in the API key that you copied. Now that our API key is set up, let's install AgentOps like so, and come over to the main.py script and add the following lines. At the top, let's import our environment variables. And on line 8, let's import AgentOps and initialize it as well with this auto start session parameter to be false. This will allow us to explicitly specify when we want AgentOps to start and stop tracking our code, which I like. And let's replace lines 73 to 75 with the following code that will wrap our call in a try except clause and AgentOps.start session and AgentOps.end session function, as well as mark the session as either successful or failed, depending on the outcome. And now let's run our little CrewAI application again and see what happens. Here you can see AgentOps has printed out a link when it started tracking our application and a link when it stopped tracking our application. And if we open this link, you can see that a bunch of metadata about our session has been recorded to the AgentOps console. Here we can see the tool call to the markdown validation tool, and we can also see the model that was used as well as all of the completion tokens. Okay, so that looked like it worked. We will now show how to set up a CrewAI project that was scaffolded using the CrewAI CLI. The application that we will build and set up for monitoring will be a RAG assistant. Somewhere on our computer, let's create a folder where we will start our work. For example, I'm creating a folder called Our Project Folder. Let's CD into it and open it up with our code editor of choice. I will be using VS Code. As we're in a fresh folder building a fresh project, let's create our virtual environment like so. If you're unfamiliar with this virtual environment stuff, all we're doing is configuring Python to install any third-party Python packages related to this project inside of this project folder so that it doesn't affect any other Python projects on our computer. And if we run the uv init command, you should see a Python project scaffolded for us here. And with this scaffolded UV project, we get a little hello.py script. And this allows us to smoke test everything is working. And you can see this little warning here. This is VS Code asking us to confirm which virtual environment we are working in. And this is the one we just created. And I like to remove this hello.py script because we won't need it. And now that we have all of that set up, we can add CrewAI to our project folder like so. And after CrewAI is downloaded, we can print out its version to confirm it's working. And you can see we're using 0.86.0. To scaffold a CrewAI application with the CrewAI CLI, we enter the following command: CrewAI create crew followed by the name of our project. And I'm going to use the name RAG Assistant. And you can see we're presented with a menu that helps us set up this auto-generated project. And the provider is the name of the company or group that will provide the AI we want to use to us. So we're not going to use OpenAI. We're not going to use Anthropic to mix it up. We're going to use Ollama. And Ollama actually provides hundreds of different models, but you can see in this menu, it only allows us to select 2 of them. So we'll be switching this model later. But for now, let's just select Llama 3.1. And you can see that another folder has been created for us called rag_assistant. And let's CD into it and open it with VS Code. And I know this might seem strange that we just created a project to create another project within it, but that's how this works. Now that we're in this second project folder, let's make sure that its virtual environment is set up correctly so that whatever work we do doesn't affect the outer project or any other project that's sitting on our computer. So here I am just making sure the virtual environment is set up correctly. And if we run this command, we should be good. And yeah, that looks great. Let's take a quick look at this CrewAI project to get a feel for what's going on. So if we pop open this source folder, we can see a config folder inside of it. This is where CrewAI allows us to configure the agents and tasks in our application. So here you can see we currently have 2 agents, a researcher and an analyst, and the tasks that we're giving to them are to perform research about a topic and then write a report on said topic. The way that we trigger this application is by calling this run function. And here you can see the topic that we're giving to our agents is AI LLMs. So I mentioned earlier, we were going to be using a different Ollama model, not Llama 3.1. So the way that we customize this is by importing the LLM module from CrewAI. And here is how we configure each agent to use not Llama 3.1, but Gemma 2. Gemma 2 is another open source model that is provided not by Meta, but by Google. So it's small enough to run on our computer. And the way that we're going to run it is by using Ollama. Ollama is a super easy to use tool. You can download it at ollama.com. It literally takes a minute or 2 to set it up and run it. And after you have Ollama running, you can come over to a terminal and download the model that you want to run by entering the Ollama pull command. And after you write pull, you write the model ID that you want to download. And there we go. So now that all of that is taken care of, let's run our CrewAI application by entering the CrewAI run command. Here is the report that was generated. So it looks like our auto-generated CrewAI application is working. Now let's customize this auto-generated CrewAI project and build a little RAG application. The data that we will perform RAG against will be this ebook published earlier this year by Noel Russell. So let's add this ebook to the knowledge folder of our CrewAI project. For those who don't know, Noel Russell is an IRL AI influencer based in South Florida. She has worked at AWS, IBM, Accenture, and Microsoft. So she has quite a bit of professional AI experience. And because I want to get a pulse on what her latest ebook is all about, that's what we're going to be using. CrewAI actually has a built-in RAG tool specialized for performing RAG against PDFs. So let's import it and give this tool to our researcher agent, like so. And if we look closely at the configuration of this PDF search tool for performing RAG against a particular PDF, you can see we're pointing it to the ebook and specifying that we're going to use nomic embed text as our embeddings model. If you've never heard of embeddings, it's just a fancy term for converting data into a list of numbers so that an AI can more easily work with it. It's really not that complicated. Don't worry about it. So we're going to be using Ollama as the provider of this embeddings model. So let's make sure we have this model downloaded before running our application. And the last thing we need to do is customize our prompts. So let's update the agents.yaml like so. You can read through this to see exactly what it's doing. We're just making this more appropriate for extracting relevant information from this ebook. And we're doing the same thing here. We're just customizing these prompts to extract data from this ebook. So let's run our crew again now that we've set all this up and see what happens. Okay, so this is interesting. It did not extract any data from the ebook. Let's try it one more time and see what happens. This is the brief that our multi-agent application generated for us. Now let's add in AgentOps for monitoring. To get started with AgentOps, come over to app.agentops.ai and sign up if you haven't already. Once you're signed up, come over to the API keys page and copy one of the API keys associated with one of the projects in your account into the .m file of the CrewAI project. And we're overriding this Olama config in the crew.py file, so we don't need these, but here is how we add the AgentOps API key. We type in all caps, AgentOps underscore API underscore key equals, and then we paste in the API key that we copied. After we have the AgentOps API key added to our project, let's install AgentOps like so, and come over to the main.py script, and we're going to add the following code. At the top, let's import our environment variables like so. And then let's import AgentOps on line 9 and initialize AgentOps like so. And because the homies of CrewAI and the homies of AgentOps are so tight, that's literally all we have to do. They've made it quite easy. So if we run our CrewAI application again, let's see what happens. Here we can see AgentOps has printed out a link. And when our agents have finished generating this brief of the Noel Russell ebook, we should see another AgentOps URL printed as well. We can see that there was an issue extracting text from the PDF again. So let's run this one more time and see what happens. Let's take a look at how many sessions we just ran. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So on attempt 7, the agent was able to correctly use the PDF search tool, the tool we're leveraging for performing RAG against this ebook. So welcome to the world of sub 10 billion parameter models. That gives you a feel for what AgentOps and CrewAI is all about. Peace.